Welcome to Kareem and Company, episode 8. As we start this journey, hey, can you believe it's 8 episodes?
It's good to be here and listen. But this is episode 8, right?
That's right.
Wow.
Today we're going to reflect on a civil rights giant. We're going to talk about the global shift, and if we have time today, we'll talk about extinction or genocide as it relates to us.
And more specifically, Tasmanian genocide.
So tune in and hey, we'll be right back right after this. All right, you ready to get started today?
Well, yes, sir. It's no time like the present.
Just a few housekeeping rules. I want you to please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as like us on Facebook. Hey, like us on YouTube. I know this is a time where everybody's on the inside, so for those that are on the inside, hey, it's a good time to watch Kareem and Company.
Yeah, and what we're attempting to do is to boost these numbers up so that when you hit the like button, somebody else will like it and somebody else will like it. We're trying to impart wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to as many people as we possibly can so that we can reach our community, the global community.
Well, jumping in today, I just want to send some shout outs or some love. Khadija, I see you. Brother Jeff Smith, thank you. Brother Ledbetter, thank you very much for joining in.
Yeah, and to that 8th grade class, Columbus Middle School, we appreciate you for your appreciation of our quote-unquote spitting knowledge.
Always, it's a pleasure to have you on board. I want to talk today about something that's really bothering me, being an educator, a teacher, facilitator, therapist, and the list goes on. It occurred to me that we have a very severe problem in our community, and that has to do with literacy.
And you know, Ahmed, this was something that I thought about last night. Why our people are so prone toward being entertained instead of learning. And you know, that's one of the answers. Reading deficiencies, illiteracy, not being able to read or write in cursive, so it contributes to our lack of information and our lack of historical perspective and relevance in terms of how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others.
And you know, when you can't read, it shapes the world for you.
Right.
You can't exchange or communicate. We often think in pictures. We think in words, and if you don't have that tool to use to communicate or exchange with your environment, guess what happens? You cannot communicate. I found some startling statistics that was alarming. Did you know that 32 million Americans are illiterate?
That's 14% of the United States population.
14% of the United States population cannot read or write. What's more crippling is that in our community, the African American community, 10%, only 10% of the 8th graders were proficient when it came to boys reading in the 8th grade.
Right.
And that's sad.
Right. And, you know, and also let me just stick a pin here, which a lot of people don't know, which could contribute to our hindrances. Most Sunday school lessons and even your King James version of your Bible is only on a 8th to 12th grade reading level. So there's nothing above that in the commonplace or the common populace, and so it's real disheartening that a lot of us believe in things that we really don't understand.
Well, and I can't let anybody off the hook. If you know someone or know someone that knows someone that has trouble reading or that is functionally illiterate, and you do nothing about the problem, you are just as guilty as keeping that person oppressed. I found, doing a little digging, Accountable Assessment Performance, 2017, 2018 data scores, it was found that 71.7% of African American elementary students scored below proficiency in reading. This is across the nation. That's a problem.
Well,
That's a big problem.
but you know, Ahmed, I have to wonder, so with all that being said and with all that data being given, is social media to some degree crippling?
Yes, it is. What we find is that we don't have parenting. And I know we want to place a lot of the problems on the schools, but that starts at home. You should actually be reading to your children, and I'm going to get into a list of things that we can do to counter the problems with literacy. One, the mother and the father should be reading to that child in the womb.
Right, but now we're about in the second or third generation where the mother or the father don't read either.
And that's another problem. But this is something critical because how you interact with your world. You know, they have cash registers now where children don't even have to push numbers. They push pictures at fast food restaurants.
Right, right. And so we're really enticed by sounds and pictures.
But it's by design when we look at the bigger picture, because guess what? If you can't read, you can't do other subjects like science, math, social studies. So this limits you, and this puts you in a jail without bars.
Well, not only that, but just like we're in the midst of a pandemic right now. And so a lot of things that we need to do, that we should be doing, and the severity of the pandemic that we're in, it's going just completely over our heads.
Yeah, it is.
Completely over our heads.
So we're suffering from the lack of knowledge. We're suffering because of being illiterate. And for those who know someone, whether it's a civic group, fraternal or sorority organization, a church, synagogue, or mosque, and you know that you know people that can't read, that's on you. That's on you. I want to give some information on how we can counter that. One, my suggestion is that the mother and father read while the child is still in the womb.
I bet you don't remember this. I bet you don't remember our daddy taking us to the library.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Doing the book reports.
Oh, absolutely.
And I tried to trick him once, and I didn't know that my father, when he got off work, that he actually read the books that we checked out of the library himself. And so when he asked us to do the book report, that he knew what the book said. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to trick him. I'm going to read the introduction and
On
read.
a flat.
Yeah, I'm going to read. I'm going to read the introduction and read the end.
No.
Yeah.
So
But
you got taught a lesson.
not only taught a lesson, I got tore out of frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to improve literacy, tips how we can better counter this narrative of illiteracy. And I'm not saying these are the magic. This is the magic bullet or a silver bullet approach, but to get the ball rolling, things that we can start doing as suggested earlier. Read to them while they're in the womb. Secondly, help your son and daughter find books and articles and publications that has to do with their history or African American identity. The child can see the link between the two, and they feel more prone to participate.
Right. I bet you our brother out there, Kirk Stone, I bet you he can read. He just shared the video, and that's what we'd like for you all to do. Keep on sharing this video.
Brother Kirk Stone,
oh yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Much
Kirk.
love to you, brother.
Yeah.
Keep with us. Use technology. A lot of children, young children, they can use technology. However, they cannot read. So there's a difference. You can be functionally illiterate, but you can still be illiterate. So as you go through instructions, help them to read along with you. Read with them.
Right.
Get them to show you how to use that computer, that laptop, that icon or application that you've been wanting to learn about. Another suggestion is where we play a part, and that's the dads, the older generation, the teenagers, the young men. When children see you read, they're more prone to read, and they think that that's a part of adulthood, and they're more likely to read.
You know, one of the things I want to stick a pin in, Jesus fed the 4,000 and 5,000, right?
Right.
One of the reasons why he made all the people sit down in companies by 50s to feed them was because people don't learn well when they're hungry. People don't learn well when they're socially disadvantaged. People don't learn well when they're economically disadvantaged, when they don't have a job. That the pressures of the discipline to focus in, to learn. Hey man, I ain't got time to read. I'm just trying to survive. I'm just saying, just placating an idea out here. Because earlier today, I saw some 16 and 17-year-olds. They were walking the streets. And I said, hey, what's going on with y'all? I don't know. I know I need a job. I want to work. You got something for me to do? I need a couple of dollars. I want to get me something to eat. Well, those young men, their mind wasn't on even what was going on in the world. They didn't even know it was a pandemic going on. They didn't even know about the effects of the coronavirus. They said, oh, I heard about that disease, but couldn't even pronounce COVID-19, nor knew anything about social distancing.
And safety precautions.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, the psychosis of poverty is so very strong in our communities, not only in Mississippi, one of the poorest states in the nation, but poverty all around the world, until if I am just focused in on my basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, whether or not I'm going to have these social distractions because I'm socially disadvantaged, that prevents my focus.
Absolutely.
And so, not disputing anything that you're saying at all, because I'm in total harmony and total agreement. But I think that our teachers, our educators, our preachers, our pastors, we're going to have to understand the parameters that we're dealing with, and start coming up out of the church and out of the school into the community, to the front line, in order to change the direction of the social psychosis and the lack of focus in the community.
When up until 1970, a young man could graduate school, high school, and have enough education, a certificate, or some sort of paper that deemed him ready for work.
Right.
Whether it was in auto mechanics,
That's right.
plumbing, carpentry, some form of technical skill. And that's no longer the case, and that is by design. So we need to connect the dots. We've got to understand that if we don't focus on ourselves, our own, uplift our people, we are in danger.
And reading was such a powerful tool that even back in the day, even before the days of segregation, even the days of slavery, if black people were caught reading, your first offense, you'd lose a thumb. Second offense, you'd be lynched. There was a man named Night John that used to go from plantation to plantation teaching slaves how to read, because we understood the power of the word. But what happened was, we were excluded from the privilege of reading. One of the reasons why it was so important to read, if your father was a lawyer, you could read the law and become a lawyer also. If your father was a doctor, you could read the law or read the doctor books that he read and become a doctor. Anything your father was, all you had to do was read and study it, and you could become that. But then they started putting up licensing and restrictions and making you have to pay, and the extension of education and the disenfranchisement with segregation, integration, now into this assimilation. We're totally disenfranchised, and we're totally focused into what we need to be doing, and all we want to do is just barely make it through the day and find a way of escape to see our way out of this dilemma that we're in.
We got to read in the next segment, not to just dismiss that, but we have so much to talk about in such a short time. First of all, I see some others that have joined us, and I want to send you love. Thank you, Rakaya, for sending us love. Love you too.
Hey, Kaya.
And the next, I want to talk about something that it's getting lost in this pandemic mix, and that's the global shift. Things that are occurring that we're being distracted from that is going to impact us going into 2021. And one has to do, as we speak, with the reduction of SNAP assistance. That is a supplemental nutrition assistance program. There is legislation.
Like food stamps.
Right.
In other words, I'm old school.
Okay.
Food stamp program.
Food stamp program. There is
What's it, the EBT card?
EBT, all of that stuff. They call it the SNAP program.
Okay.
There is legislation that is surfacing that's being pushed to cut by $180 billion by the year 2021.
That's quite a bit, 180 billion.
That conversation is happening right now as we make this broadcast. Also, we've had massive airstrikes that no one is talking about happening in Iraq. That's in retaliation to what happened from Iran.
You mean tell me, even as the pandemic has been going on?
That's right. So we can't be caught with our pants down, so to speak, or we can't be caught sleeping. Now, another thing I'd like to explain to our listeners, that we have to pay close attention to what's not being said. We have to pay close attention to what's going on behind the scene. We have to open up our third eye, for those of you that know what that means. I was just sharing before we opened up this broadcast how we're leaving cash, the currency of cash, which is no longer backed by gold, and now we're going to computer chips, cash apps, applications, credit cards. These are tracking systems that can track you globally.
But the attraction is the convenience of it.
Yes, that is the selling point. But what's it really for? What's the backstory? What is it all for? Why isn't cash king anymore? Are we going to a global economy where there's just one unidollar everywhere? What is it? What's the story? We have to pay attention to what's happening with us right now, especially in this economy. Not to say that COVID-19 is not important and we don't need to be watchful, but we also have to have our third eye open and to understand what's taking place as the narrative happens about the pandemic. What are the things that are happening to us while we sleep, while we're on the inside?
If I may, you know, you mentioned the pandemic, the COVID-19. What a lot of people in the South don't realize, particularly Mississippi, which is a neighboring state to New Orleans, Louisiana, back during Mardi Gras, 1 million plus people traveled to the city of New Orleans and party, Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras, during the time of the COVID-19, the coronavirus outbreak. Well, what did that do? That has accelerated not only the disease in New Orleans, of which the city is on the verge of complete shutdown and chaos, but it has made the numbers in Mississippi rise astronomically. I mean, they're doubling down on numbers day by day.
Do you know the number now?
I don't know the exact. I don't know the exact current number.
Has it passed 500?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. But yeah, it's well over 500 cases. Matter of fact, it would be safe to say that we're on our way to 700 cases in terms of people who've been infected. Deaths, I'm not really sure about. But we need to be mindful and protect ourselves. We need to Google and look at what the CDC is suggesting that each and every individual do. And we don't need to take it lightly and just wander about nonchalantly and keep on partying or playing these games like so many of our people have nominally done, walking up and down the street, because this disease will kill you. It has hit the rich as well as the poor, the old as well as the young, and so it's not prejudice in what it's doing. And finally, what I want to say about that is, because there's always some good that is in any bad situation. You know, we always have had a problem being unified, people walking together, talking together, being in unity, eating together. Now, because of social distancing, you can't do it, but we can have an appreciation for it when the social distancing is released, because then we'll appreciate being together, talking together. We'll appreciate some of the little simple things in life that we have been missing in our freedoms, because of God pressing the reset button on the whole world in terms of making everything that we thought that was important come to a complete halt. So we need to just take this time, reassess, pay attention, and not to go down by the situation, but to benefit by it.
Well, you know, if I may piggyback on that, I read a very powerful quote. It said, "When you can't go out, go in." And I took that as meaning to be introspective. Take time to work on your spiritual self, your spirit man. Take time to read. Take time to meditate. Things that you've never done before. This is the opportunity to do those things now, and to work on those crafts or hobbies that you didn't have a chance to get to right in that journey. Learn ways to pray, ways to meditate, ways to work on the inner self. And that way you can build and be a better person in relationships. See, if you don't have anything on the inside, you can't give anything on the outside. I want to read a quote based on this pandemic that came out hundreds of almost 200 years ago by Charles Darwin. I found fitting for today's occasion. It said, this is what he said in the 19th century: "Death pursues the native in every place where the European sets foot."
Yeah.
For the hearing impaired, I'll read it one more time. Death pursues the native in every place where the European sets foot. Now, that's not to target any particular person, but what we are going into and what we are going to talk about just briefly is the genocide of the Tasmanian people, who are Aboriginal people that exist. You can Google this. This will be a fun history lesson. The island of Tasmania in 1803, the Britain government started traveling in that island, and as a result, the people are gone 73 years later. So we're
All it
talking
took was 73 years?
73 years and they're extinct.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of when they came over on the Mayflower and met Squanto, and within a 22-year period of time, Squanto and all of his kinfolk, they were gone off of the coast of the east coast of the United States.
What I did know was interesting to find when I was doing this piece of research is that at one time Australia sent their prisoners off to this island as punishment, and due to disease, due to imposed extreme measures and hunting these people and killing them on purpose, that after 73 years, the last Tasmanian person, Tasmanian devil, we're talking about actual Tasmanian people who inhabited the island of Tasmania.
And then in trying to control the narrative, they created a Tasmanian devil. You know, after all of these people were gone, you know, the Tasmanian devil, and they created a myth about Tasmania. Do you remember that? Do you remember that cartoon?
Yeah, the animal.
Yeah, and the animal that it was being extinct, and had more focused on the animal
Than the people.
than they actually had on the people.
Wow, that is really something. Big brother, in the time we have remaining, I want to just take a few minutes to reflect on a friend, a civil rights giant, a man of integrity, a personal friend of mine,
And a personal friend of mine.
Dr. Joseph Lowery,
Yeah.
who passed last night at the young age of 98, because he was just full of spirit. Born in Huntsville, Alabama, 1921. A fighter, just a fireball.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I remember him, as a matter of fact, I attended his 80th birthday celebration in Atlanta, Georgia. Of course, I'm dating how how old I am, but it was a pleasure. But more and more, we're losing our giants. And say when a elder in our community dies, a library closes.
It was an honor for me to serve with Dr. Joseph Lowery in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference back in the 1990s. And for our young people who are tuning in who don't know who Dr. Joseph Lowery was, Dr. Joseph Lowery was the co-founder, along with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. of the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I first met Dr. Lowery in 1997 here in Mississippi at MUW, where I was sworn in as an officer of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And as my brother said, he always was a fireball, had a great sense of humor,
Yes.
was very serious. One of the few preachers that were serious in liberation theology.
Yes.
Preached liberation theology from the pulpit, Christian liberation theology, of which many of us now preach entertainment theology, but one of the last of the great freedom fighters that has now gone on, and I believe his death occurred on Friday.
One of the backstories in terms of how he became involved, he was a little boy in Alabama, about 12, and a policeman punched him in the stomach with a billy club. And it was that encounter that was the push for Dr. Lowery to become a freedom fighter, a civil rights activist, and truly the giant that he was. And so on behalf of him, I'd just like to just celebrate his life and to encourage you to read up on him, learn as much as you can, and on to Alpha Omega chapter, Brother Lowery. 98 years old.
98 years old. 98 years young. And I want to stick a pin here. I would like to thank all of those who have tuned into this live broadcast. Don't forget to pick us up on YouTube, and any episode that you've missed, you can pick us up. Just put in Kareem and Company YouTube, and you can pick up all 8 episodes.
Just binge watch.
Yeah, just binge watches,
That's
and
right.
you can come up to date where we talk about various current events and also historical perspectives from experience, also by just general knowledge. Also, because so many churches are closed down, I want to remind you on tomorrow, 11 a.m., Kareem and Company Facebook page. Tune in. You can hear a message. Don't forget how good God has been to you. And just simply tune in at 11 a.m. on tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the like button for us.
Brother Spraggins, Brother Harris, thank you for joining us. Hey, and thank you to next time. Join us on Kareem and Company as we continue to impart light, facilitate vision, fuel empowerment, and always inspire action. Love you much. Thank you.
Thank you.